Hi. If you saw the last devotion that I did with the same car as the background, you may remember that I was working toward installing these seats. Well, as you can see, they're finally in now. But last week when I was talking about this, I was talking about the way that God uses tools to multiply the force of His Word and give His Word extra leverage in our lives. It was all focused on the way that He does that in our lives. But today I want to talk about the way in which we use those same tools, because God gives them to us and He supplies the power behind them for sure, but it's still up to us to really determine how and when we use His tools of baptism, communion, and the Word in our lives, right? He doesn't force us to use them now or at any particular time or in a particular way. That's up to us to figure out. Well, when we think about just using regular tools, we realize we don't always use them very well, do we? I really struggled when I was using tools to put these seats into this car last week. Maybe you sort of look at me doing this kind of project and think, oh, he must really know what he's doing. Well, let me tell you, I had to put these seats in 3 times before I got it right. The first time I had the left and right seat rails mixed up, so didn't fit, had to take it out. Second time I discovered a couple of the bolts that came up from below were too short, had to take it apart again, put longer bolts in. Third time before I finally got that right. And all of us struggle with problems like that when we use God's spiritual tools in our lives too, right? Even such a great saint as St. Paul confessed that he had not obtained perfect righteousness yet, and he still wasn't at the place where he wanted to be. He said, I press on to strive toward the goal that God has called me to. And Paul did that, he said, by forgetting the mistakes in the past, putting all of that behind, and straining forward with all of his being to obtain what God had already set before him. That's kind of what we have to do in our spiritual lives too, right? We can keep trying again as God sets His tools out before us and says, here, put them to work in your life. Read my word. Remember your baptism. Receive my gifts in Holy Communion. Oh, we don't use them as often as we should or as well as we should. But like Paul, we too can put the failures of the past behind us and try again, even if it takes us 3 tries, 23 tries, 103 tries to get it right. We can keep trying to be what St. Paul urges us to be, a worker, he says, a worker who has no need to be ashamed, but who handles God's word of truth correctly. That's what St. Paul encouraged his young apprentice Timothy to do, and it's great advice for us too. Forget the past. Strive to do better in the future. Strive to be that kind of worker who uses God's tools effectively and well to reassure yourself of your forgiveness in Jesus and to strengthen yourself in your faith.